Tonight on America's Hope, we celebrate men as we approach Father's Day. This is our Father's Day special tonight on America's Hope. It starts right now. Father's Day is a critical holiday that I think men should pay attention to, especially if they're fathers, and then if their fathers are not at home. The other thing that I find important about Father's Day is that it reminds us of the role that men play in their homes. If they're husbands, if they're fathers, or if they're estranged from their family, they still have a role to play if they have children in the lives of their children. So joining me now is a good friend, Joe Pellegrino. He is the founder of Legacy Minded Men, and he knows something about fatherhood. He's one himself, but he's also talked to a myriad of men throughout the country, thousands of men to be exact, who understand the principles of fatherhood. Joe, thanks for being on America's Hope. I think part of America's Hope is the fact that men step up to the plate and be fathers, because the statistics show that in America, fatherlessness is an epidemic in America. Is that statistic right?
That's an understatement. As a matter of fact, let me go right to the prison system. In the prisons, it's said that 95% of the men in prison have no good relationship with a man, and that being mostly their father, grandfather, or a potential mentor. That's a significant number, and it certainly explains a lot of the reasons why young men go astray. They go astray because they're looking for a man to lead them, and when there's no father checked in or even in the picture at all, they look to an older person. So this might be a 3 or 4 year old a person that's 3 or 4 years older than them, i.e., a gang, and they're brought in, they're loved, they feel something, because every man, every person is born with that goal of I want to have a purposeful life, and they want to know that they're cared for and loved, no matter how hard-hearted they may be at any particular time. That is always there.
You were saying something to me earlier about Mother's Day in the church and how that's so celebrated. Talk to me about that against the backdrop of Father's Day.
Well, the two best attended services in any church year are Christmas and Easter. The next one is generally considered to be Mother's Day. Now, on Mother's Day, mom gets up and says, "Hey, Johnny, you haven't been to church in a while, but it's Mother's Day. Could you please come?" She goes to church. She most likely gets a rose, and the pastor talks about Proverbs 31. It's all just a blessing to the mom. Father's Day, on the other hand, is one of the least best attended services. Why? Well, man gets up and he says, "Well, you know what? It's my day. I'm going to go play golf." And then the boys say, "Well, mom, if dad's going to play golf, we want to be with dad because it's Father's Day." But if he does make it to church, a lot of times the pastor or the priest, whoever it might be, kind of points a finger at the guys and say, "Guys, we got to do a better job. We've got to be men. We got to do this." So the difference is, one is an encouraging piece. The other one is generally it's a little more pointed. And that's, of course, a broad stroke, but that's a lot of times what actually happens. And that's the reality of how men are viewed today. And it's a great challenge.
You're right. And even to our discussion, we're kind of pointing the finger at men saying, do better, be better. Well, what about the fathers who are getting it right? Where's the encouragement for them, Joe?
Well, it's certainly not in the media because we don't highlight it. What we need to do is start talking more and more about the guys that are getting it right. And by the way, there are a lot of them out there who are getting it right. They're loving their wives. They're loving and nurturing their children. They're providing for a family. They're working hard. They're doing the things that need to get done. But it's not sexy in this world. But the reality is it's true. And we tend to talk about men in a very negative way. And I understand that. But to be very frank with you, and this is the one thing I will say to men, we've allowed that to happen. It's on our watch, especially my generation. We need to do a better job of stepping out and being the man God called us to be, a leader, a provider, a lover, a protector. That's who we're called to be, not a domineering individual, but simply somebody that's out there for the better of the next generation.
I like the way you're taking this conversation and encouraging men and telling men to step up and let them be themselves and not
Mhm.
be afraid or ashamed of the role that they play in America as well as in the households of America. The men who are out there doing the right thing, you said it,
Mhm.
they've got to be able to be there for their children and not be afraid of that. Uh, Give me some examples of what a good father does in America.
The reality is, a real man of God, a real dad, is there to provide, protect, and love, nurture love their wives, but be an example for their children. Be strong and show them the right way. Remember something. We see a lot of young girls going waywardly. If you really look in the lives of those young girls, usually there's no dad that's in the picture, and they could be in the same house, mind you, but that doesn't mean they're in the picture. They could be completely disconnected from the family. But we see these young girls, they're looking for love. They're looking for that dad. And what they do is they find it in the arms of another man. And that's usually a bad thing. We need to portray the strength and the courage that a man should possess, and being alert so that we're always on guard, not only for our minds and our hearts, but also to protect our wives and children, as well as anybody else that's given to us in our care. We need to be able to stand firm in what we believe and not be shaken, and willing to die for our family, willing to literally die for them, because that's the power of love. And I see so many men that are right there, but I also read and see of so many men that aren't, because they were never taught. We need to mentor. We need to be grandparents, grandfathers to our kids. We need to love them unconditionally and teach them the right ways. And that is, I believe, we're deficient there.
What happened in your personal life to help you become the man you are today and have this passion for fatherhood and for helping men understand the significance of creating and establishing a legacy of godliness and value and worth?
Well, I had a dad who was a very good man. He just wasn't a great teaching dad. Didn't really point me in the right direction. He was always My dad would always talk to me about, well, be careful, be careful, be careful. But he never really shared much with him. We never talked too much about the important things. And I remember one time I was watching a show on a program called The Blessing. And I said to my wife that day, hey, when we go see my dad today he's going to tell me he loves me, because he had never told me to that point. And it was interesting because I realized that day I never told him I loved him ever. And it was really hard getting those words out the first time. But that day was the only day my dad ever told me he loved me. And I knew he did. He just didn't remember. I have to go back. His father was off the boat from Italy. So they never did anything like that. So I recognized that I needed to break some bonds that were happening from the past, and say, look, let's do this differently. So I tell my kids that I love them so much. Literally, in one phone conversation, my kids hear it more than I ever heard in my entire life. I love to say I love my kids. I love to show them the right way. But I will look you in the eye, and so many of you men out there know what I'm talking about. I have made so many mistakes. But listen, the only thing bad about the mistake is not learning from it, getting
Mm,
up, and going
mm,
forward. I have made those mistakes, but I'm trying to be the best dad I can possibly be. I fail so much, but I will continue to get up and try, because they are worth it. And remember, we're modeling for them to do likewise. So I have two sons and I have a grandson. As a matter of fact, this morning I had another granddaughter born.
oh,
So God is
congratulations.
good, and it's thank you. It's so exciting not only to be a dad but to be a granddad, because we have a role too. We need to point them in the right direction.
That's good. That's good. Another question I got for you. We were talking about fatherhood and manhood, and it's Father's Day. What about women? Sometimes women can be very critical of men, and a lot of that is rightly placed because of what men have failed to do. But what about women actually encouraging men to be better and do better? Hi, everybody. I hope you're enjoying this episode so far of America's Hope. If you'd like to see it in its entirety, just click on the link below. Thanks for watching.